9 times out of 10, if a past criminal gets let out on parole and goes back to prison, it's the parole officer's fault. This is not always the case. I heard a story one time of a parole officer going to check on one of his parolees who hadn't been checking in like he was supposed to do. His parolee's infant child had just died. The parole officer knew this and understood this. And instead of locking him up, because he hadn't been checking in, just told him that he understood and knew the parolee was going through a difficult time. He told him to be in later that week, and if he wouldn't be able to make it, then the parolee should call him and let him know. Before he left, he prayed with the parolee for his family and that God would help him through this difficult time. This is one of those instances where a parole officer shows compassion, faith, and understanding instead of just assuming the worst in people. I haven't been indirectly involved in law enforcement for the last 12 years. My father started off as a dispatcher in the local sheriff's department and is now a lieutenant deputy for that same office. I think that it's important for a criminal when they get out of prison or jail to have the same support outside as they do on the inside. In every job, field, or career, there is a way to show God's love and what He values, and I'm going to use parole officers as my example. I'll first start off with a little bit of history about parole officers, then I'll move to what a parolee has to go through to stay on parole, and finally I will discuss parole officers today. The first parole officer was Alexander Menaki. He was a Scottish geographer and a captain in the Royal Navy. In 1867, it started off that parole was 1 month off for each year of the sentence with good behavior. Thomas Saz, an expert on parole and criminology, says that most criminologists believe that banishment was the first form of parole. Since at that time, religion and God was a major part of life, I suspect that they included God in their profession more often in the 1800s than they do today. Ex-inmates on parole can't just go and do whatever they want. They have certain rules and regulations they have to abide by. Inmates can get on parole by doing certain things, and most of the time are denied by the parole board the first time that they apply for it. Some of the things they can do to get on parole is such as get their GED while they're on the inside, but they can also lose it very easily by smart-mouthing a guard or getting into fights. It can be very easy for a parolee to lose their parole if they don't abide by certain conditions, such as they can't be in possession of illegal narcotics, they can't own weapons, they can't commit another crime, they must stay home outside of their working hours, and must get permission before marrying, moving, changing jobs, or out-of-state travel. Not only do parolees have obligations, but parole officers have obligations to parolees, even though it seems impossible. Philip Garrido was in prison for kidnapping and impregnating an 11-year-old girl twice. However much you think that man does not deserve a break, Martin Messner let him have parole and left him with these parting words. I hope that you will continue to do well. If there's anything we can do to help you, do not hesitate to call. Having faith in the criminals can have a huge impact on earning respect from them. Also, having faith in them will lead them to have faith in you and respect you more, where you can in turn lead them to God. If they don't respect you, they're not going to care what you have to say, and most likely will not abide by their conditions of parole. Parole officers today have some differences than in the 1800s, such as why people choose to be a parole officer, what qualifications they have to have, and ways that most parole officers can advance the things that God values. Most people choose to be a parole officer because, like myself, they want to help people. To become a parole officer, you need to have a bachelor's degree in one of these fields, either criminal justice, psychology, sociology, social work, counseling, and these are some of the most common types of degrees held by someone in the parole officer field. Most jurisdictions want you to be at least 20 years old, hold a bachelor's degree in that field. Some states require you to pass certain training and certifications that they specifically have. You will also need to be licensed to carry a firearm in that state and have to pass a psychology exam. Some states will want you to have at least 2 years of work experience in corrections or counseling position. Some of the best ways that a parole officer can teach parolees about God is to first earn their respect, as previously stated, and then teach them the things God values. The easiest way to get someone to listen to you is tell them in a conversational tone instead of an instructor testing it. So to summarize what we've discussed the history of parole officers, what parolees have to go through to stay on parole, and the lives of parole officers in today's world. As I've shown in my speech, even though people want to blame a parole officer when they go back to jail, it requires both sides to cooperate fully. This speech is about parole officers, but you can take some of the foundational aspects into your own about what God values. No one likes to be spoken to like they are being degraded. I pray that you find ways to show God and Christianity through your lives.